Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar with the Spain-US Chamber of Commerce, where we will discuss several important things about the protection loans that have been in place in the last week. So we have a great panel today to discuss all these topics. We have Diana Londoño, Vice President, International Economic Development from Beacon Council, and previously served as Manager of Foreign Direct Investment at Enterprise Florida. We also have Nicole Cunningham, which is partnered with H&Co, a South Florida CPA and advisory firm dedicated to working with international investors since 1992, and Carlos Aguilar, International Relationship Manager with City National Bank, with 17 years of experience in banking in America and experience helping local and international clients. We also have today with us the Trade Commissioner of Spain, Francisco Garzón, and he would like to address you briefly. So, Francisco. Francisco, we can't hear you. Could you check if it's unmuted, your microphone? We see that it's unmuted here. Okay, we cannot hear you at this point. Okay, so we are going to start with the presentation, and later you can intervene if you like. So just a quick overview. All the attendees have in the right side a panel, and there's a word that says questions. So any one of you that would like to ask some question, you could write it there. And at the end of the presentation, we will be more than happy to answer those. Please, at the beginning of your question, include the name of the person that you would like to address the question. So if it's a question for Diana or for Nicole or for Carlos, please, at the beginning of the question, write their names and then the question. So all questions will be addressed at the end of this presentation. The first panelist talking will be Diana Londoño, then Nicole Cunningham, and then Carlos Aguilar to provide the overview of the banks and how can everyone submit the applications. So without further ado, Diana, if you want to start, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me. I do have a presentation that I'm going to share with the I'm going to set it up right now. Give me 1 second. All right, perfect. I hope everyone can see that. So good morning, everyone. Thank you all for calling in. My name is Diana, and I am the person who actually helps international companies business in Miami-Dade County. I'm hearing some feedback. Can you all hear me? All right. So the role of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council is to promote Miami as a business destination and to ultimately create net new jobs in our community. As you can imagine, our current role has pretty much shifted, and we're pretty much doing as much as we can to assist local companies stay in business, have their doors open. So as a result, we've actually created this COVID-19 business resource page, and you can access our website and you'll be able to have information there. But I've also included the link to this presentation. I would like to share that my presentation is available, so I will share this with Juan Carlos and his team in order to share with everyone, and you'll be able to have access to it. I want to talk about our new website. So we've created bizhealth.miami, and it's really a tool, and it's a site that augments the available resources from our community at the federal level, at the state level, and from our partnerships throughout our community. So again, we're just putting all of the information about emergency relief loans, about all of the resources that are available at this time in this one page. Feel free to log in. We're going through a soft launch right now, but it will be available in the upcoming days. And the main difference between this and the current page that we have now is that we're going to have actual people that can talk to you. So you'll be able to go through some eligibility questions and you'll have an opportunity to speak to a person. So we're setting up a virtual call center for individuals to be able to answer these questions for you. We know and we understand that there's been so much demand to not only DEO, but to also SBA. And I know that it's been challenging to get through to some people. So this is why we're really excited to launch this program, Biz Help.Miami, because you're gonna have access to talk to individuals one-on-one through our chat box. Another initiative that we have at the Beacon Council right now to address some of the issues related to the coronavirus is that we've created a B2B resource. So right now we understand that there's a lot of demand for personal protective equipment. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify local suppliers in South Florida. So this is a regional approach and a regional initiative. So we're working with Broward and Palm Beach County, in addition to our healthcare system and our local hospitals and our local clinics, to identify local suppliers that have been able to shift their current day-to-day to provide some of this personal protection equipment. So if you go on our website, you'll be able to fill out a form that we will actually work with the South Florida Manufacturers Association, the World Trade Center Miami, our partners in Broward and Palm Beach, to really do a really good job at identifying how you as a supplier or someone that you know that's a supplier can fulfill some of those gaps that our current healthcare system has. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And again, you can access that by clicking on this link. Additionally, we already have about 80 companies and suppliers that have signed up, and you can actually go on this website right here and you'll be able to see what companies that have shifted and are now producing masks. Some of them are producing hand sanitizers. And again, these are all local companies and you'll be able to see it here. This is intended for our local healthcare system to have access to it quickly because they're the ones that need it the most. Additionally, we encourage companies to visit our Beacon Council Miami-Dade sites. We've seen some exceptions where companies are actually growing and they need more space. And so they can quickly figure out which sites are available at the moment. And then lastly, we have a relationship with a non-for-profit organization that actually has private planes and is able to transport different personal protective equipment that's necessary. So again, that information is going to be available on our website. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. What I'm going to cover now, and I'm going to try to do very quickly because I know we have a lot of content to address during this webinar, is I'm going to talk about the Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan, which is administered by the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, DEO. So this emergency bridge loan is a short-term interest-free, one second. Apologize for that. It's an interest-free working capital loan intended to bridge the gap until a business has secured long-term recovery resource. What that means is that they're expecting either SBA to kick in or your insurance to kick in. This is the first time that this loan has been made available due to a public health crisis. These loans are typically available to a natural disaster, and in the state of Florida, that's usually during the hurricane season. So be mindful that there's a lot of fluidity and a lot of flexibility that I know other speakers are going to address, just because there's so much new information around this public health crisis. If anything, please make sure that the takeaway from my presentation is that we have a robust group of organizations in South Florida to help you, guide you through this process. The Florida Small Business Development Center, SBDC, has wonderful information. The resources that they provide is free, it's at no cost to you. And what they do is they guide you through the application process of not only the emergency bridge loan at the state level, but they also guide you through the SBA application. So be very mindful that this is a wonderful, outstanding resource that is free. And our local Miami chapter is at FIU, located in Brickell. And I have contact information at the end of my presentation. But please, if you haven't reached out to SBDC yet, make sure that you reach out today immediately after this presentation and set up a consultation. One more thing that I'd like to highlight about SBDC is that they put together a committee to review your loan applications, at least for the emergency bridge loan. So that means that local bankers and in addition to the local bankers, they have community leaders that will be reviewing your application. So people in Tallahassee are not going to be the ones approving your application. They're going to be local folks. So it's very important that you go through and you work with them because they're going to be providing a lot of guidance. So again, I'll try to move quickly through this. So which companies are eligible for the emergency bridge loan? They're going to be for-profit, privately held businesses located in the state of Florida. The business has had to be established prior to March 9th of 2020, and the business must employ between 2 and 100 individuals. So the loan, this is a 1-year loan. It's an interest-free loan. However, if you don't pay the loan by the end of the year, the interest rate will be 12%. You can use an SBA economic injury disaster loan to pay off your emergency bridge loan to ensure that you don't pay the interest on this loan. Right now, companies are eligible for up to $50,000. They are making some exceptions, and some companies are eligible for $100,000. And then the deadline for this application is May 8th of 2020. In order to apply, you can go directly on DO's website. So you can go on DO's website, or you could go to rebuildflorida.com. We suggest that you print out an application so you can use as a checklist, but please make sure that you submit your application digitally and that you do so completed, because if you don't, that means that individuals will have to go back, check your work, and that's just going to take longer. You also have about 10 to 14 days to get the application approved. And again, working with SBDC would be very helpful. I included information about what's needed. In addition to, there's 7 sections on the emergency bridge loan application, and they will require you to submit business tax returns, your employer tax documentation, your individual tax return for certain years. You're also going to need to include sales figures, credit report. If you do have any credit report issues, they will ask you to submit information on that. And then lastly, for the emergency bridge loan, they will ask you to submit a copy of your ID, your business license, bank statements, income statements, personal financial statements, liability policy. This is, again, just very quickly on what you need to submit in order to apply for the emergency bridge loan. And once you're done with that portion of the application, you're going to see this chart that highlights that the 7 sections are completed. That's when you can go ahead and submit your application. And if you have any questions, this is contact information for DEO. But again, working with SBDC will alleviate a lot of issues and a lot of questions. So we encourage you to go through that avenue first. And so now I can go ahead and talk about, and again, this is going to be a very brief overview because I know that Nicole will be speaking mostly about PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. This is just an overview of both programs, emergency programs that are available. These are supposed to be relief loans from the Small Business Administration. As you can tell, my information is outdated, and I actually finished this last night, but the information was changed last night. So please, again, there's a lot of fluidity, a lot of flexibility coming out of SBA because this is a brand new program. In fact, companies are only being able to, they're now able to apply as of today. They weren't allowed to apply yesterday or the day before. So again, do expect a lot of changes. So the Paycheck Protection Plan is a payroll incentive, and it's really intended for employers to keep their individuals on payroll. So this is an incentive for individuals to maintain the workforce and that we have people employed. So this is incorrect. Now the fixed annual percentage rate is 1%. Payments will be deferred for 6 months. And this will be a forgivable loan if you maintain your employees. And again, Nicole will be talking more about the program. On the economic injury disaster loan, companies are eligible for up to $2 million. The interest rates for private companies is 3.75% and 2.75% for non-for-profits. And the term of the loan can be up to 30 years, and 0% is ineligible for forgiveness. So this will be a loan. And a new program that came out from last week is that they're going to have an advancement for the economic injury disaster loan of up to $10,000, and that $10,000 is actual forgivable. So that's a really good incentive right now to ensure that companies and business owners have access to those funds, because we understand how important and how much they need it. So the economic injury disaster loan is a working capital loan, and it's available to small businesses, and again, non-for-profit organizations are eligible as well. The business has to be physically located in the United States. And what kind of criteria does SBA look for when they're reviewing an economic injury disaster application? They're going to look at your credit history. They're going to ensure that you can repay your loan. And they're going to, again, make sure that your company is physically located in the United States. I see that I'm running out of time, so I will try to go quickly. Again, entities can qualify for up to $2 million, and that's going to be based on the size of your company. And you can use these funds for payroll, accounts payable, and other bills. This is not intended for you to use to expand your business. SBA does have other resources that you can use if you want to expand your business. So there is collateral requirement for a loan over $25,000, and they do accept real estate as collateral. And if you don't have any collateral, SBA will not decline it, but they will ask you to pledge whatever you have available. This is some examples of the companies that are eligible. So hotels, recreational facilities, manufacturers, sports vendors, restaurants, retailers. And again, I need to emphasize that the business has to physically be located in the United States. Again, there are different SBA loans that are available. There are loan guarantees. There's a bunch of different options that SBA has to offer. And this is for when small businesses are trying to grow. Companies can tap into those, but this is specifically a relief loan. So this is to ensure that you can keep your doors open during a crisis. In order to apply for the economic injury loan, you need to do so directly through the SBA, which is different from the PPP, where the PPP is actually you work through a lender. And that's the reason why we have a banker on this webinar who's going to share more information about that process. But again, the money's coming directly from the Treasury Department, and you will be filling out your application directly through SBA. This is some examples of the non-for-profit organizations that are eligible for the economic injury disaster loan. Nursing homes, food kitchens, museums, educational facilities. And then these are some examples of the entities that are not eligible. So gambling, casinos, racetrack, religious organizations. And then again, you apply directly on the SBA's website. This is my contact information. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. And then the last thing I want to share is contact information for SBDC at FIU. And SBA does have a local Miami district office. I share their address, which again, you're not going to be able to have access to at the moment, but I do have an email address that I can share with you. And I think most of you can see that. And then a phone number. But again, if you don't take anything else from my presentation, reach out to SBDC, set up a consultation, talk to them. They will walk you through the entire application process for the emergency bridge loan and the SBA emergency loans. With that, I'm going to be here. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to address them.
Thank you so much, Diana. So just as a quick reminder, because I see that there are many people that have just connected, we are having a webinar and we are going to talk to different loan programs and how to apply for those. We are saving the questions at the end. So if you have any question, please send us all questions at the end. And please remind to include at the beginning of the question, the name of the person that you would like to address the question to. Also, in addition to this webinar is being recorded and we will share the webinar with all the registrants of it. And as well, at the end of an email that we will send to everyone that registered, we will include the contact information of the 3 panelists. So in case that you have a specific question for them and you don't have time to arise that question during the webinar, you can send an email directly to them and they will be able to answer you. So let's see, Francisco Garzón, the Trade Commissioner of Spain, if we solve the problem with the microphone. Francisco, are you there? For some reason, we're still not listening. It might be a problem with your microphone. Okay. Well, we'll try and continue, and we're going next with Nicole Cunningham from H&Co. So Nicole, your turn. You can share with us if you like the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. My presentation is what is on the treasury.gov website. This is what I 100% rely on because there's been so many changes since this rule was announced that I actually go every hour to treasury.gov to make sure nothing's changed. So Juan Carlos, can you verify that everyone can see my screen with the actual website treasury?
Yes,
okay.
We are seeing it.
This is where I'm going every hour. Last night I checked it at 11 p.m. and they had released the final borrower application. So all my facts are coming from this site. The most recent facts, I can't guarantee it won't change, but this is what's currently available. An overview of the Paycheck Protection Program. This was an effort to save the economy. It sounds too good to be true. It sounds too easy because it has to be in order to restore some type of balance and to get money into the hands of business owners so that they can pay payroll so that those unemployed persons don't bankrupt the unemployment system and to try to maintain some type of balance. So if it sounds too good to be true, it's because it has to be. So an overview. The Paycheck Protection Program is part of the SBA 7A. It's a new product that was created via the CARES Act and implemented on last Friday when it was signed into law. It is a loan that you can obtain to pay up to 8 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits. I'll go into those things in more detail. The funds can also be used to pay interest on mortgage, rent, and utilities, all of which you had prior to February 15th, 2020. So if you just signed a lease agreement as of April 1st, no. But if you have a lease agreement or a rental agreement that was in place already on February 15th, a portion of the funds could be used for this, and you can get a loan forgiveness. When they say fully forgiveness, what they say is apply for the loan on June 30th. When you go back to the bank or your lender and you prove how you use the funds, so long as you did it based on the rules that they've set, which is 75% on payroll, 25% can be used on the interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities, you may be granted forgiveness. The exact details of the forgiveness have not been released. That should be released in 15 days. I've told many clients of mine that are worried about the forgiveness part. Look, apply for the loan. Let's say you get it. If you see that for some reason you won't meet the forgiveness criteria, at that point you may consider paying it back. There's no prepayment penalty, but the forgiveness details have not entirely been out, so I can address them as an overview, but that's to be released within the next 15 to 30 days. In order to qualify, you must keep employees on payroll and rehire quickly. You have until April 26th to rehire any employees you furloughed since February 15th. So if you had to let them go because your business was closed, you're a restaurant, and the city or the county or the state forced closure, you have the capacity to hire them by April 26th and still qualify for the full forgiveness, because that's going to come into an equation I'll explain later. They want to make sure that those funds that you obtained were used to pay payroll based on the payroll costs you had before. They don't want to give you Paycheck Protection Loan Program for you to use it on anything other than maintaining payroll and to try to keep some equilibrium as to how things were before February 15th. Everybody is eligible as long as you're a small business with 500 or fewer employees, unless you're a restaurant or some of the industries that have an NAICS code that begins with 72, they have an exception from the 500 or fewer employees rule. They have expanded the 7A to include certain nonprofits, which was never applicable under the prior SBA 7A rules. Also, in the little details of the CARE Act is that you have to be a business located in the US, you have to contribute to the US economy in some way or another. You can't just be a passive entity. So as long as you're a true full business and you had employees for which you paid payroll and payroll taxes, or if you're self-employed, which we'll go into detail later, you are eligible to apply. When to apply? They passed a law last Friday and Steve Munchin, the head of Treasury, said by next Friday, we'll have the application available. This has been a work in progress. I have a lot of sympathy for the banks and what they've been going through in the past couple of days. But technically today, the final application is available and banks may be able to, or should be able to, or are allowing the submission of these applications. There is a funding cap. I don't believe that $339 billion are going to disappear within the week, but there is a funding cap, $339 billion, but this is a very popular program. And the Treasury said this is a first come, first serve. So do not wait to apply later. Apply now. The details may come out later, but just apply now because there is a funding cap. How to apply? Many people have said, Nicole, can I send you my application? Can you do it for me? No, you need to speak with your lender. Hopefully it's your banker if they're participating in the program. If they're not participating in the program, you can find another SBA lender, preferably City National Bank. Carlos can go into more detail. They're a great bank. They've been very ahead of the game on this. But you can also go to SBA.gov and find all the eligible lenders for this program. So you can only apply through them. You cannot apply through the SBA, unlike the economic injury disaster loan, which you can. So this can only be done through your lender. Now, let me go into some more details about the program. The loan amounts are forgiven so long as 8 weeks are used on payroll. The application process, how to apply and who can apply, we've covered that. What do I need to apply? You'll need to complete the application and submit the application and require documentation to an approved lender. Every lender is probably asking the same things, but I see some variances. Therefore, it's very important you ask your lender now what they're going to request so you can gather that information. A very common item has been Forms 941 or W3s or W2s, but you have to ask your lender what required documentation they need from you. You also will have to submit payroll documentation, of course, because the loan amount is going to be based on 2.5 times your payroll from the previous period. When I say previous period, for most businesses, it will be 2019. So let me show you a quick little scenario. Do you see my Excel, Juan Carlos?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So your payroll cost for 2019, let's assume it's 600,000. Payroll costs include not only salaries and wages, because some people may leave some money on the table that's very necessary for them right now. You have to, and Juan Carlos, do you see my Word document now?
Yes.
Okay. Payroll costs includes the following, and this is per the Treasury. Don't believe anything you've seen on any blog or any other document. This is what the Treasury judge had posted, and this is all you can actually count on because it's changed, and the devil's in the details. Salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation. Cash tips are the equivalent. Notice how they specify a good faith employer estimate of such tips. Why a good faith estimate? Because they had to make the system as quick and simple as possible. If the banks had to underwrite in detail every single item, nobody would get any money and the economy would not be salvaged. This is honestly to salvage the economy. That's why they're really trusting the applicants to certify and to act on their good faith, and they're giving the banks a lot of leniency, and they're being held harmless, and they're just saying, please use your best judgment and your best interest. Do this and we will reward you. If you act in a way that's any way fraudulent, even if you say, I'm gonna apply for this loan and use it for my own personal mortgage or for my car payments, that actually is considered an act of fraud, punishable by like jail time and significant penalties. So the Treasury is having a lot of faith in the applicants. Please respect the system because this is the simplest process I've seen in my entire life thus far. So salary, wages, cash tips equivalent, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for any separation, dismissal, and payment for provision of employee benefits consisting of group healthcare coverage, including insurance premiums and retirement, and only state and local taxes assessed on compensation. Do not include federal unemployment tax or Social Security. Only state and local, which fortunately in the state of Florida, it may be very minimum, if any, because of the Florida reemployment tax. For independent contractors and sole proprietors, this is what will include payroll costs for them. There was a lot of confusion about the 1099 miscellaneous. Let me explain a scenario where that actually would be considered a payroll cost, even though an independent contractor is not an employee for purposes of loan calculation. But let's say that I hired a graphic designer and she worked for me for 3 months and I paid her as an independent contractor $3,000 a month. Then I wanted to hire her and I offered her $36,000 a year. In that instance, I believe that's why a 1099 miscellaneous would help to calculate the payroll costs. But they do not want you to include any independent contractor because they wouldn't be part of your payroll and you wouldn't have paid payroll taxes. So if you had an independent contractor that converted to an employee, they qualify because you paid payroll and payroll taxes to that person. If you had an independent contractor that you gave a 1099 miscellaneous and you do not pay payroll taxes on them, therefore they do not qualify. Why? Because the independent contractor on their own can get their own application, can file their own application, which will begin on April 10th. So please do not include 1099 miscellaneous, as that will cause a delay because the bank cannot really count on that to approve it for payroll cost considerations. Also, what's expressly not allowable for payroll costs is compensation of an individual in excess of an annual salary of $100,000. So if you pay somebody $150,000, you can only use $100,000 for purposes of calculating your payroll loan amount. So it would be $8,333 per month. That's your average monthly payroll cost if you were to have one employee that was $100,000, $8,333. You would get 2.5 times that amount. So you don't have to remove the employee if they have over $100,000. You just have to exclude amounts that are in excess of $100,000. Any compensation of an employee whose principal place of residence is outside of the United States, you cannot include that. The reason is that the SBA is a government program funded by US taxpayer dollars. This is to stimulate the economy, to keep it alive, to invest in US jobs and US infrastructure. They don't want to lend money, basically grant money for you to pay somebody in another that's not going to be part of the US, because there's certain laws that prohibit taxpayers for funding foreign operations. It comes down to those specific details. So if you have an employee that's living abroad, unfortunately, you cannot consider them as part of your payroll, so please exclude that. This is a strange addition to the rules as of yesterday. I don't know why they put this particular period. I don't believe federal employment taxes ever count, but they're emphasizing that definitely do not include federal taxes imposed or withheld between February 15th and June 30th. I believe this is from a forgiveness standpoint. They're saying, when you come back on June 30th to apply for forgiveness, and I ask you, I want to see your payroll costs, if you include this, I will not forgive that portion. Therefore, don't include it when you are considering your payroll costs for the loan amount, because they're definitely going to exclude it when it comes time for forgiveness. There's also a part on qualified sick and family leave wages. We have a website, hcoadvisories.com/coronavirus, that explains this. This is a very particular rule. It doesn't apply to most, but I'm happy to further discuss it on a separate call. For now, we'll keep it simple. So these are your payroll costs for determining the loan amount. The Treasury provides very, very simple examples. And they also will use these payroll costs for determining your loan forgiveness. This is an Excel. Let's assume that your 2019 payroll costs are $600,000. A very easy way to check what this might be for you would be to look at your quarterly 941. That has the actual wages, salaries, commissions, or tips that are paid, and get that for each quarter, or work on your general ledger, your W-3, whatever you can use to get the actual payroll costs. This divided by 12 gives you 50,000. 50,000 times 2.5 gives you 125,000, your maximum loan amount. Now, the 8-week period after you get the loan is eligible for forgiveness. Therefore, if I wanted to qualify for full forgiveness, which I would, because it seems the most beneficial, even though I'll tell you another scenario where it's not, I'd spend 50,000 on week 1 through 4, because that's obviously my average monthly payroll costs. Same on week 4 through 8. The additional $25,000 that I have, I'm eligible to use it on either utilities, rent, or mortgage interest. If I use it on utilities the first month and on the second month on utilities, and then I want to use $5,000 towards rent, I would have spent my $125,000 loan on the eligible expenses and in the eligible percentages. They want you to use 75% on payroll and only 25% on excess. You could use more than 75% on payroll because it means you're hiring more people, and given the significant unemployment, that would be great. But you don't have to use more than 75%, but you can. You can use 100% on payroll. 25%, no more than 25% though, can be used on these additional expenses. When it comes time for forgiveness, they also want to make sure that you did rehire or restore jobs back to what they were pre-coronavirus, whether they're going to look at how many employees you had as of 12/31/2019 or February 15th, 2020. So let's say on February 15th, 2020, I had 50 employees. On June 30th, I only have 40 employees because I let go of some people. I couldn't keep them. It wasn't going to be effective for the business. That was a business decision each person has to make, but you had 40 employees. Therefore, only 80% of your loan qualifies for forgiveness. The remaining 20% of your loan will actually be converted to a loan. This is a 2-year loan with a 1% interest. It started at 4%. It went down to 0.5%. Last night, it ended at 1%. Okay, so this is the principal you'd have to pay back plus 1% interest. Interest begins accruing when you obtain the loan, but you have a deferral of the first payment for 6 months. And if you get full forgiveness, you don't have to have paid anything. Therefore, I would suggest you try to get the full forgiveness, but if you don't, this is what occurs. Also, if you use 60% on payroll and 40% on the rest, I believe they won't forgive 15% of it because you didn't use it up to 75%. The Treasury will be putting out those rules soon about forgiveness, and we plan on having another webinar to explain just how to keep track exactly of your loan proceeds so that you can use it accordingly. Let me go back to the application. Okay, so I covered payroll costs. How large can the loan be? It's capped at $10 million. To get a $10 million loan, that would mean that your monthly average payroll cost is $4 million. So if it is, $10 million is the maximum. Anything over $4 million, you can't. The maximum is $10 million. How much of the loan will be forgiven? It could be 100%, but again, it's going to be based on the number of staff you retain and the level of payroll. If you get the loan and you reduce everybody's payroll below 25%, like you used to pay somebody $100,000 and now you're going to pay them $60,000, you reduce them more than 25%, your loan forgiveness will also be reduced. Everybody has the option to hire and restore full employment by April 26th, so that on June 30th, when they ask you the number of employees you have and the level of payroll, you can still qualify. So anyone that had to let go, furlough, reduce salaries, if it's in the best interest of the business to restore them by April 26th, you can qualify for the full forgiveness. Otherwise, you will be reducing the amount of forgiveness that's applied. Forgiveness decisions are done you have 60 days after applying for forgiveness to receive it. Any forgiveness as debt does not count as income. In other situations, if you had a loan and it was forgiven, that would be considered taxable income. For purposes of the Paycheck Protection Loan, they have waived that. So you do not get any income tax effect from any loan forgiveness. It's 1% fixed rate, deferred for 6 months. The full loan is due within 2 years. There's no prepayment penalties. There's no collateral required. You have to certify the following. This is a very Everybody says, how do I verify that? They're not asking you to verify, they're asking you to certify from and make a good faith certification signed under penalty and perjury that current economic uncertainty makes the loan necessary to support your ongoing operations. I don't know a single company that isn't experiencing economic uncertainty right now, but if you feel that you're not experiencing economic uncertainty, then technically you shouldn't sign this. But most companies probably are. And the government wants any company that experiences that to feel secure that they can maintain payroll, because that is in the best interest of the entire economy. This is not a kindness, this is not a handout, this is not a bailout, this is a stimulus package. You stimulate the economy when you put money in the hands of good business owners that are going to maintain their payroll and that are going to help restore some normalcy and balance when the economy and the world opens back up, whatever day that is, hopefully soon. But let's pretend on July 1st, you did what you had to do with the Paycheck Protection Loan, you're ready to go, and this is why the government is proceeding in this way. These are additional details about the loan forgiveness. Again, they are going to issue final guidelines and regulations within 15 to 30 days. I will only use those to really verify exactly how this will be applied. But anything that you say can be held as fraud, they're really taking Scout's honor on all these forms. The tax documents that banks may request from you to verify certain things, they want to make sure that you're saying, yes, I filed this with the IRS and I'm giving you a copy. Do not at all create a document right now and submit that. Only documents that you have already submitted to the IRS. There's no time to get the transcript, that would delay the process too much. So you have to only show documents that for sure were submitted to the IRS. This is the actual application. It's very simple. No matter what application you've seen out there, disregard it entirely. This is the final version of the application, and it's meant to be simple on purpose. You have to just check what you are, DBA or trade name, the legal name, the address, the EIN, then a very simple box. What was your average monthly payroll? If I put 50,000, what is that times 2.5? If you have an economic disaster loan and you want to refinance it to this loan that could be forgivable or that has a lower percentage, you can do that. I won't include that example for purposes of simplicity, but you can say that, say 5 employees. And this is as of either 12/31/2019 if you're an existing business, or February 15th, 2020, or what the CARES Act showed was the period from February 15th, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. The rules I last saw said as of December 31st, 2019 for existing businesses, or you could use the period of January 1st through February 15th, 2020. If you want to send me an email asking me more details about this, I can. Use your best judgment. If December 31st, 2019 doesn't make sense because your business changed and actually on January through February 15th, that makes the most sense, use your best judgment. Again, the forgiveness rules will come out and we can really see the nitty-gritty details, and you have the option to turn in the money or keep it as that. But make sure this number is in the most reasonable and most accurate, and this is based on full-time employees. Purpose of the loan, select more than one. Don't just say payroll, because if they're giving you 8 weeks worth of payroll, if they're giving you 10 weeks worth of payroll and they're only going to accept 10 weeks, you can use payroll and utilities or payroll and rent. I don't see any allowable uses for other, but they have that for some reason. I don't personally feel comfortable using it because it's not what's been said in other parts of the application. They want to know any 20% or more owner. If you're a foreigner, and this is the big question right now, or the big concept that changed drastically in the past 24 hours. Before, the application used to say if the owner of the applicant being the business, was not a U.S. citizen or not a long-term permanent resident, that they did not qualify for the loan. That has been explicitly removed from the final application, and it makes 100% sense with what the purpose of this program is. If you're a foreign owner of a U.S. business, regardless, in my opinion, if you have a visa or not, but you have a company that had employees for which you paid payroll and payroll taxes, that is all that is required to be eligible for this loan. So they removed that. If you've seen it, it's no longer here, and it's no longer here because it does not make sense and it doesn't actually follow the laws and rules of the SBA and the SOP 5010. So do not worry if you have to put foreign NA, that is fine. I've seen one bank have an application where they ask, is the owner a US citizen, resident, or other? And they put other, and they were able to submit it. So that's been removed. However, the owners of 20% or more owner of the company that's applying, or the applicant, if an individual, because they're a sole proprietor, they cannot answer yes to any of these questions, which have to do with if you have any criminal charges against you, et cetera, if you're delinquent with any other existing type of loan. So most people do not have to put that, and most people will qualify. This is information required for every 20% or more owner. They want to know, hold on, oh, they actually might have removed it. If you own this company and you own 20 other companies and combined you have over 500 employees, you may not apply unless you're in a certain industry. So they may request additional information about affiliate entities, and that's just to verify that you're not double dipping and getting a loan for the holding company and then getting a loan for the individual companies. There's only one loan per applicant. The applicant is the actual business. So they are requesting information that makes sense because you cannot get two loans for the same purpose because that's considered double dipping, and that's all. That is basically it. These are the questions. This is the only loan, only application. Everything else is certification. This, you can see a copy going to treasury.gov on this red click, and then you're going to see final borrower application form. Again, the banks may have their own process, so while you can complete this one, I don't know if the bank will accept it because they require some type of e-document signature or e-verified signature. So please inquire with your lender before completing this and submitting it, because it may be a pointless effort based on that. So that's a loan. These are the certifications. Again, nothing that we haven't really covered. They want you to confirm that you will use the funds accordingly. Otherwise, you could be subject to charges of fraud. So do not apply for this to intend to use it on your car payment or other things. Otherwise, charges of fraud, and I read that in more detail, and they're being very, 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 very harsh when it comes to that, and it makes 100% sense because this is a very simple process, and if you abuse it, it definitely will result in bad news. So the instructions, again, they're giving you the instructions only for assessing your payroll costs, which we went over, but please do look at your payroll costs. Don't assume it's just on the W-3 or the 941 total. Look at line by line so you can make sure you don't have to get rejected by the bank for not having provided the necessary information. They provide some samples. They're very simplified samples, similar like to the ones that I've showed you. And on June 30th, after you obtain the loan, once you go back and you prove that you use the funds accordingly, you'll be eligible for forgiveness. I will have another informational webinar purely on exactly how you have to keep track of these funds so that you qualify for forgiveness. The SBA does not at all want to see you taking out an ATM cash deposit and then saying, oh no, I took out $25,000 to pay payroll. Do not do that. Even if you actually have to, because it's most convenient, find a way around that. Have it documented, have it solid, because you do not want to be disqualified for not properly using the funds and having every single transaction from that period of 8 weeks that would cause any rejection of your loan forgiveness application. Juan Carlos, do you think I've covered everything?
Yes.
Or questions, anything you want me to cover in more detail?
Yes, no, thank you so much, Nicole. It's been very helpful and it's been great information. So now, before coming with Carlos Aguilar, and we are lucky enough to have one of the lenders that it has been more proactive in this time, so City National Bank. They've been ahead of some other financial institutions, and they are receiving applications from today. But before that, I wanted to check if we have finally covered or have fixed the sound with Francisco Garzón, the Trade Commissioner from Spain. Francisco, are you with us?
Hello?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I didn't realize my audio was connected to another device. Sorry about that technical problem. I just wanted to very briefly give you two comments or two messages. First, thank the panelists, of course, and the chamber for putting together this webinar. I believe it's very useful. Each and every one of the panelists, thank you, and especially the Beacon Council for the availability and the support they always give to the business community, and in particular to the foreign investors in Miami, and particularly the Spanish companies. And then to the attendees, thank you so much for being there. And just to let you know, as a representative of the Trade Commission and the Spanish administration here in the US, and particularly in Florida and Miami, that we're here for you, that we're available. We can help you with anything you need. If you want to reach out to an institution or a counterpart in the public sector here in Miami or in the States, we can provide you information, contacts, and also information about the ongoing situation, for instance, with customs, which is very fluid. Anyhow, just to make sure that I let you know that we're available. We're still working, of course, from our homes, and also tell you that we would like to see you stay together, stay safe, and hope to see you all very soon. And that we remain at your disposal. And thank you again.
Thank you, Francisco. So just to remind you, we'll still have in line Diana Londoño and Nicole Cunningham. They will remain here with us. And now we are given the opportunity to Carlos Aguilar from City National Bank, and he will go and guide us through the process that the bank provides for apply for all these loans. So Carlos, your turn.
Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing? Okay, so like Nicole said, and let me just start by moving some of my screens. Okay, here you go. I'm sorry about that. Okay, like Nicole said, you know, some of the information that we have that we've been getting since last Friday has changed a lot, or it's been changing throughout the days. But what we're doing at City National Bank is we're trying to make this as easy as possible to the clients, and make them informed of every change, everything that happens. And what we came out with is, we have this quick reference guide. So this is what we do for our clients, and what I'm going to explain is, kind of the process. After you understand how the program works, then how we can help you at the bank. So we have created this quick reference guide, which gives you basic information. If you looked at it, it's pretty much the information that Nicole covered. So what we try to have the customers prepared. So we get in touch with them, we give them all the information, and we tell them what we're going to need, the requirements that you're going to need that. If you compare with the presentation from Nicole, it's pretty much the same. So after we get in touch with the client and the client shows interest, so we go ahead and then we send this email, this generic email to the client. Okay, so in this email, we just instruct the client to come here and initiate the process. When the customer clicks in this link, then it will take them to one of our websites, that the platform that we created for to take these applications. Given the circumstances, we know that people staying home and nobody wants to go to any place to with the possibility of getting infected. So we are doing everything to DocuSign to make things easier to the client. So when the client puts the information, and I'm just gonna make some information. The customer is gonna put their business name, and the customer is going to put their email to receive the information. Once the customer does this, then you're going to be taken to another page where we're going to need to, the customer is going to need to fill out some basic information. And this is pretty much the customer saying to the bank, I'm interested. Here's my basic information. What's the next step? All right. Once the document loads, let me just should have it here. So once the document, that page that I just showed you is going to take you to fill out this form. And this is just an example. And like I said, it's going to ask you basic information, the name of your business, your tax ID number, if you operate under a fictitious name or DBA number. Then it's going to ask for the primary contact, email, and then we're going to need to know who are the owners, their emails, and the percentage of ownership. And then that's pretty much it. Once you do this, then the website is going to take you to our City National regular website. That means that basically the first step has been completed, that we received the information, and within 24 hours you should receive a second email from us saying, now for the client to input the application, and we are having the customers upload their information, the documentation themselves. Okay. So like I said before, the document is a DocuSign document where they're gonna that's a legal way to sign documents, and that's how the application is going to be completed. Based on what we've been told, we're expecting to be funding the loans within 48 hours after application, after the application has been submitted and uploaded. In some cases can be sooner, but the rule of thumb should be 48 hours, no more than 48 hours. Okay, so basically that's it. One thing that we're doing as a bank is, of course, we're here to help our clients, but we are asking our clients to have an account with us. So we're helping our clients and non-clients. But with non-clients, we just are asking the customers to open their account with us, and we will be more than happy to help. I think that's pretty much the process that we have in place. Nicole very well explained the rest of the requirements on how the loan works. This is the page I've already uploaded after I input my email, and then this is what the customer is going to see. Okay, and then you'll continue to fill out the information, and after they do that, then I'll go to our website. That's pretty much the process and how the customer applies. Here's I'm putting here my business card just in case if anybody has any questions. I know we're gonna have a Q&A soon next, but if there is any questions, then I'll be more than happy to address those questions.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you so much. So before we enter to the Q&A, and now is the time, if any one of the attendees would like to address questions to our panelists, please remember to write first the name of the person that you would like to address the question, and just write the question, and we'll try to cover most of them. Also, as I mentioned before, this webinar is being recorded, and we will share with all of you the video so you can see it again. And also you will receive an email with the email addresses of the panelists. So in case we don't have time to address all the questions, you can make those questions directly to them. So before we start with the general Q&A, I have one question, Carlos. So you mentioned that for those clients interested, you send them an email where they could find the link and start the process. So where should those interested clients send the email to? Is there a generic email address where we should send an email saying that we are interested, or they will send it to you or someone else at the City National Bank?
No, how we work is, when the customer gets in contact with us, then we just ask some questions to make sure that the customer qualifies, make sure that they don't have more than 500 employees, kind of explain them how it works and what the potential loan amount will be. Once the customer agrees to move forward, then we'll go ahead and forward that email that I show you guys, where the customer is going to be able to click to do the first step of the application process.
Okay, well, perfect. But to get the first step, we should contact with someone at City National Bank. It could be you or someone else working at the bank. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, then I invite Nicole and Diana as well to join us and to start with the Q&A. So we have some questions here, and I'm gonna start telling the questions. Some of them are being answered during the presentation. Some others are repeated. So I'm going to do a selection of the questions, and you can answer them as you like. So first question, it's, can businesses established in the US for over 20 years but foreign owned qualify for these loans? Question to Diana Londoño. I think that was answered during the presentation, but I think it's an interesting question, and it's good to remind that. So I don't know if
I'd like to answer that, because there's two separate loans. We talked about three: the Florida Bridge loan, and we talked about the Paycheck Protection loan. We talked about the Florida Bridge loan, but there's also an economic injury disaster loan by the SBA. I believe the Florida Bridge loan and the economic injury disaster loan, because they are actual true loans and they do need collateral or credit history or something, you must be a US citizen or long-term permanent resident in order to apply. I don't know if Diana or if...
Yeah, so what we received from DEO and SBDC is that they have to file taxes in the state of Florida, and they need to have a Florida driver license and an ID. So they have not clarified if someone that holds an investor visa is actually eligible. So that is something that we're still waiting to be confirmed. But I know that with the economic injury disaster loan, they're going to be more strict than they are being with the Paycheck Protection Plan. So even the business has been around for 20 years and it's owned by a foreigner, they do, right now, they will ask you to have, for you to file your personal taxes in the state of Florida and to have a Florida ID or driver's license.
That for the Paycheck Protection loan, and I believe that I agree with that for the other ones. For the Paycheck Protection loan, if you're a 20-year business and you had employees, if they weren't to allow that business to apply because the owner is a foreigner, those employees may be laid off for a load and they'd go claim unemployment, because in order to work in the US, you have to have a visa or maybe you're a green card holder or you're a citizen. The point of this program is to not collapse the entire unemployment system, which is why, based on the SBA 7A rules, a foreign corporation that owns a US-based business should be eligible to apply for the PPP loan. It makes sense with the clarifications and the update of the application. Therefore, I'm going to say that yes, they would qualify to apply. Again, everyone qualifies to apply. The limits have been removed, but you may not be eligible for the economic injury or the Florida Bridge loan, because those are true loans.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I have another question asked. The maximum unsecured loan is $25,000. This is for location or for owner with different locations?
And that's about the economic injury disaster loan, I presume, because there's no guarantee required or collateral on the Paycheck Protection loan. But I do not believe that that's per location. I believe it's for the business, because they want to have some type of collateral or guarantee after a certain amount for the economic injury disaster loan.
Yes, there is collateral. Collateral over anything that's the loan is over $25,000 for the economic injury disaster. However, for PPP, there is no collateral.
Right. And when he said per location, I believe it's for the business. I don't know if per location changes, but I'm certain it's for the actual business, regardless of
and maybe with the PPP, if there's a small business that's a restaurant or yeah, we can use a restaurant as an example. If they have less than 500 each location, they're still eligible per location for the PPP. So I don't necessarily know, maybe the question was tied to that new information.
Very good, thank you. So another question that we have is, how do partnerships qualify for those loans? Do warranty payments to partners consider wages? Are they also counted as FTE?
We have to specify if people are asking a question regarding the Paycheck Protection Loan, or if they're asking about the economic injury disaster or Florida Bridge Loan. I'm going to answer that question based on the Paycheck Protection Loan, which is what I assume they're asking. Payments to partners is not part of the payroll costs. Why? Because that partner is self-employed. They get a K-1, they pay self-employment tax, and they are eligible for their own loan, which will be detailed by April 10th. But those guaranteed payments, I do not believe apply because they're not subject to payroll taxes for the business. There is, that may be just for the self-employed individual to apply. For example, I'm a partner at my company. I get guaranteed payments and distributions. I 100% know that my company could not use my payments to me as part of the payroll cost for determining the loan amount. If I was going to apply for a Paycheck Protection Loan, I'd have to do it Nicole Cunningham as self-employed because I'm a partner. I'm not an employee. You cannot be a partner and an employee. It's one or the other. So we have to have another webinar, and I suggest we do, purely to cover self-employed.
Yeah, we will have a webinar next week to cover all those details and all the other changes that might happen in the next days.
But
so we have
I'm sorry, today, to clarify, today who's able to apply are small businesses and sole proprietorships. Okay, as of today, April 10th is independent contractors and self-employed, which is the case of partners and partnerships.
Okay, perfect. We have a couple of questions about what it was stated before about the owners of the companies being not American citizens or residents. I think that was covered, that yes, they could apply if the business is here in the United States. There are several ones. For paycheck protection, yes, for paycheck protection loan, not for the other ones. Yes. Yeah, if you want to clarify that, Diana, for the other ones.
So for the emergency bridge loan, and that one's administered by the state of Florida DEO, they will ask you to submit personal tax filings in the state of Florida, a driver's or an ID issued by the state of Florida, and that obviously the company is filling out their taxes in the state of Florida. And so again, we've gone back and we've said, what about individuals that have an investor visa? That has not been clarified, but I know that that's going to be required. And if that means that the individual that's applying does not have one of those three, then they're not going to be able to apply. That's for the emergency bridge loan. That's an interest-free loan for up to a year, and that's with the state of Florida. For the economic injury loan, from what we understand, they are requiring 51% of the ownership to be either a legal resident or a U.S. citizen.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. We have another question that asks, can we, or are cloud services and computer service utility costs for PPP?
For PPP, when they came to what actually constitutes utilities, they didn't clarify that, but I would, well, for sure, payments of electricity, water, light, that 100%. When it comes to computer costs or anything that you're not certain, worst case scenario is this. Let's say that you get the payroll protection loan. In 15 days, they announce the forgiveness rules in detail and they clarify exactly what utilities cost. At that point, you'll realize, oops, this isn't going to be forgiven. You can either pay it back right then and there or keep it and just know it's a 2-year loan, 1% interest. But it's not a crime to consider that computer cost might be a utility. You'll get further clarification within the next 15, 30 days to make a better decision, but not necessary today for application purposes.
Okay, Thank you. Carlos, we have another question for you. They're asking, could we apply even if we are not clients of your bank?
Yes, we can help non-clients. One of the requirements is that they turn into a client. Something that we are advising our non-customers is to try the bank and give us the opportunity to show them what City National can do for them, not only to help them with this time, but one thing that I think is important is for them to have their payroll accounts clear and crystal clear. Because later on, like Nicole says, they're gonna come with, okay, I gave you this fund, now you need to show me how you use those funds. So we can help them with that. But to your question is, non-customers, yeah, they will have to turn into clients for us to be able to help them with the application.
I'd like to add that at Beacon Council, we actually have a banking and finance committee where we have a lot of members from the banking world, and we're hearing from them that they're expecting a tsunami of applications. And some banks are actually saying that they're not going to be taking any new clients because they're going to prioritize their clients. So this is great information for the individuals that have called in to take advantage and reach out to Carlos if they are looking to do this. There are also some lenders that are not SBA preferred loans, and SBA is onboarding lenders on a daily basis to ensure that they provide those services to clients, but be mindful that a lot of lenders will not have the capacity to take on new customers. So it's really nice to hear that Carlos and City National Bank will be having flexibility to take on new customers.
And also, I want to highlight that the SBA has made it a little bit more simpler for many people to apply to become lenders. Therefore, within the next week, you'll see a lot of more eligible lenders. If for some reason you can't go through your bank or you can't go to a new bank, there's on the SBA.gov, if you look for find a lender, anyone that's covered to give 7A loans, you could potentially apply there. There's supposed to be some fintech companies that are going to be eligible soon based on what the Treasury is saying because of the high demand and the need to get this money out as soon as possible through various formats. So check SBA.gov if you are having an issue with the bank, and or if Carlos at any point says that they cannot, due to capacity or time, it would be a better option.
One thing that I'm sorry, Juan Carlos, that I like to add is that, we know what the times that we're leaving, everybody is hopefully home, staying safe. We have the platforms and the capabilities to get those accounts open and up and running remotely. We do not require the customers to be present in our office. We can do everything via email or, with PDFs and emails, and we can get the accounts up and running.
Carlos, that's an incredible option. That's really good to know.
It is. Thank you. So we have another question for Nicole. The maximum of $100,000 per employee for the PPP, it's including salary, health, and health insurance cover?
Well, no, I would say that the maximum on 100,000, if I were to read it very semantically as it's stated, is in terms of wages, salaries, and compensation. So if you're an employee and I offered you a salary of 120,000, I can only include 100,000. But my insurance premiums or those additional benefit costs, I do not believe will tie into, will not apply to the $100,000 cap.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. For Diana, there's a question. For the PPP, is there any credit history or other loan repayment capability verification to qualify?
I haven't seen any of those requirements yet.
No,
there will not be, because this is 100% guaranteed by the government. There's no collateral. You do not have to have a capacity to pay it back, and you do not have to guarantee it. So they can't request it technically because the government's guaranteeing it. Sorry to jump in, but that's
okay.
Good, thank you. Another question for Carlos Aguilar. It's in Spanish, and it says, ¿cómo se va a implementar la relación de los agentes con los lenders? So how are you going to implement the relation between agents and lenders?
la relación entre agentes y bueno, no entiendo muy bien a qué se refieren con la pregunta, pero I guess the most important thing is to know that, you know, we are the link between the client and the SBA. And, you know, we take the applications, we help the client to determine, to help them understand what their maximum loan amounts are. We give them the documents that they're gonna need. And on our end, we provide our platforms for the client to go and do the application, sign the application remotely, and upload the documents. I don't know if that's what the question was asking.
Okay, if not, they could say another question. I have another question here. If I have, for Nicole, if I have 3 employees with 50,000 each as payroll and 1 employee with 150,000, total payroll is 300,000, but only with 1 of them with more than 100,000. Should I apply for 62,100 or 52,000?
Let me, your amount of monthly payroll costs, if you have 3 employees that are $50,000 annually and 1 employee that's over $100,000, the annual payroll cost, for purposes of assuming your calculation, is $250,000 because you're only going to include $100,000. So $250,000 divided by 12 is the $20,833. That portion times 2.5 gives you $52,080 is your maximum loan amount based on that equation, not including benefits.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yes, thank you. Another question that it's interesting. Is it possible to ask for the 3 loans or grants that we discussed today, or if you ask for the PPP, you cannot access the disaster loan, for example? So what's the compatibility between the things that we discussed today?
So you can actually apply for the emergency bridge loan. You can use one of the SBA loans to pay off the emergency bridge loan. That way you don't have to pay the interest. Remember that the emergency bridge loan is an interest-free loan for the first year. After that, there will be an interest of 12%. So if you go ahead and apply for an emergency bridge loan, that's why it's called a bridge loan, because they are expecting either the SBA or your insurance to come in. Therefore, you can apply for the emergency bridge loan. You can also apply if, let's say that you've already applied for an economic injury disaster loan, but then realize that the PPP is obviously more attractive and more beneficial, you can still apply for the PPP. So at this moment, given that companies are only allowed to apply now for the PPP, we've seen a lot of cases of companies that have applied for both the emergency bridge loan and the economic injury disaster loan. So short answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes, you just can't use the funds from the economic injury disaster loan for payroll purposes and then get granted loan forgiveness on the PPP loan. So you can get both, just use the economic injury disaster loan if you're to apply for it later for other purposes other than what the PPP loan. The PPP loan also cannot pay back. You can refinance a bridge loan through the EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan, but you cannot technically, based on what's written by the Treasury, use a PPP loan to pay the Florida bridge loan, because that's not another SBA loan. That's a separate program.
Good, thank you. We have another question for Diana. For the PPP, is there any employment retention requirement after June 30th, 2020?
I believe the answer, and I asked Carlos and Nicole to step in. I believe the answer is yes.
For after June 30th, I've seen those restrictions and requirements for the $500 billion given to airlines and to other industries. I haven't yet seen that requirement for the SBA portion of the CARES Act, but that will be provided within the next 30 days. But as of now, I do know what their question they're asking, but I haven't seen it for SBA thus far.
My understanding is that they're going to look at your payroll as of June 30th, June 30th. I haven't heard anything beyond that date.
Okay, thank you. And we have last question because we are running out of time and we don't want to steal more time from our attendees. We have a part-time employee who only works for us. Can we add her in the SBP application? Who would like to address that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. We have a part-time employee who only works for us. Can we add her in the SBP application?
SBP. SBP is, what is the SBP?
I don't know.
They're referring to
The PPP.
yeah, maybe the PPP.
Right. For the payroll costs, you can they don't limit only payroll costs as it applies to full-time or part-time. They only say payroll costs. But when it comes to determining the number of employees, it's only full-time or full-time equivalent. So it's a part yes, part no. Yes for the payroll costs because it doesn't specify payroll costs only for full-time. But when they say number of employees for retention purposes, for the forgiveness purposes, for stating how many employees, only full-time and full-time equivalents.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to everyone, to all the attendees. We have some more questions, but we ran out of time. So I encourage all the attendees to keep looking to their email addresses. We will send an email with the email addresses of the panelists, so you can send them directly the questions. And we will also share this video, this webinar, so you can see it again and share with friends and other contacts that you might have. Keep posted on the information that through the Spain-US Chamber of Commerce we are sharing. We will have another webinar next week where we will address some of these topics, and we will also get into more details, as Nicole said previously. And please stay healthy, and please apply to these grants and these opportunities that the federal government and the state government puts on to try to cope with this horrible situation that we are living right now. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, these panelists, Nicole, Diane, Carlos, for helping us to understand a little bit, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.